Please don't be please. Please, no. No. Oh my God!
Imagine being a child, full of dreams and laughter, only to have your world shattered by words sharper than knives. This is the story of Aubreigh Wyatt, a 14-year-old girl whose life was stolen not by illness or accident, but by something far more insidious: bullying. Aubreigh was like any other teenager. She loved art, music, and spending time with her family. Her parents called her their little sunshine, a bright light in their lives. But behind her smile, Aubreigh was hiding a pain too heavy for her young shoulders to carry. It started small, name-calling in the hallways, whispers behind her back. But soon the bullying grew louder, crueler, and inescapable. The very place where she should have felt safe, her school, became a battlefield, and no one seemed to care enough to stop it. This is not just a story about bullying. It's a story about a system that failed, a community that looked away, and a family left to pick up the pieces of a life cut tragically short. By the end of this video, you'll understand how Aubreigh's story is a wake-up call for all of us. But first, let's go back to the beginning, to the days when Aubreigh's laughter still echoed through her home, and her future seemed as bright as the colors in her art. Aubreigh Wyatt was born into a loving family, the kind of home where laughter filled the air and dreams felt within reach. She was a creative soul, always sketching in her notebook or humming her favorite songs. Her parents often joked that she could light up a room with her smile. But as Aubreigh grew older, something began to change. It started in middle school, a time when friendships can feel like lifelines and rejection can cut deeper than any knife. At first, the bullying was subtle. Snide comments in the hallway, whispers in the cafeteria. Kids can be cruel, and Aubreigh quickly became their target. Her parents noticed the shift. The once bubbly girl who couldn't wait to share her day began to withdraw. She spent more time alone in her room, her sketchbook filled with darker, more somber drawings. When they asked her what was wrong, she would shrug it off. "It's nothing," she'd say, but it wasn't nothing. The bullying didn't stay confined to school. It followed her home, creeping into her life through social media. Anonymous accounts sent her hateful messages, calling her names and telling her she didn't belong. Aubreigh tried to block them, but the words lingered in her mind, eating away at her confidence. Her parents reached out to the school, begging for help. They were told it was just kids being kids, that Aubreigh needed to toughen up. But how do you toughen up when the world feels like it's closing in on you? This was only the beginning. The bullying was about to take a darker turn, one that would change Aubreigh's life and her family's forever. As the weeks turned into months, the bullying grew worse. What started as whispers and name-calling turned into public humiliation. Aubreigh was tripped in the hallways, her belongings stolen, and cruel rumors spread like wildfire. The bullies seemed to feed off her pain, growing bolder with each passing day. The worst part? It wasn't just one or two kids. It felt like the entire school had turned against her. Even those who didn't participate stood by and watched, too afraid to speak up. Aubreigh felt completely alone, trapped in a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. Her parents tried everything. They met with teachers, principals, and even other parents, but nothing changed. The school's response was always the same. "We'll look into it," but no one ever did. Meanwhile, Aubreigh's mental health continued to spiral. In her diary, she poured out her heart, writing things no child should ever have to feel. "I hate myself," she wrote one night. "I don't know why I'm even here. No one would care if I was gone."
Please don't be please. Please, no. No. Oh my God!
Her words were a cry for help, but no one heard it. Then came the final straw. The bullies took their cruelty online, creating fake accounts to harass her. They posted hurtful comments, shared private photos, and even threatened her. Aubreigh felt like there was no escape. The bullying followed her everywhere: school, home, even her dreams. One night, after another day of torment, Aubreigh made a decision that would shatter her family's world. She left a note for her parents, telling them how much she loved them and how sorry she was. Then, she took her own life. Aubreigh was only 14 years old. Her death sent shockwaves through her community, leaving everyone asking the same question: how could this have happened? When Aubrey's parents found her that morning, their world came crashing down. The little girl who had once filled their home with laughter and light was gone, leaving behind a silence that was deafening. They were heartbroken, angry, and desperate for answers. The first question they asked was, why? Why had no one stopped the bullying? Why had the school ignored their pleas for help? They soon realized that Aubrey's death wasn't just a tragedy, it was a failure of the system, the school, and the community to protect a child who needed them most. Aubrey's parents decided to fight back. They launched a campaign to raise awareness about bullying, sharing their daughter's story in the hopes of preventing another family from experiencing the same pain. They also filed a lawsuit against the school district, accusing them of negligence. The lawsuit sparked a heated debate. Some people supported the family, calling for stricter anti-bullying policies and better mental health resources in schools. Others blamed Aubrey's parents, saying they should have done more to protect her. But the truth was, no one could have predicted the depth of Aubrey's pain or the cruelty of her bullies. As the case gained national attention, more stories began to surface. Other families came forward, sharing their own experiences with bullying and the lack of support from schools. It became clear that Aubrey's story was not an isolated incident. It was part of a much larger problem, one that had been ignored for far too long. But amidst the anger and grief, there was also hope. Aubrey's story inspired change. Schools began to implement stronger anti-bullying programs, and lawmakers introduced new legislation to protect students. Her family started the Aubreigh Wyatt Foundation, dedicated to helping other children who were struggling with bullying and mental health issues. Yet for Aubrey's parents, the fight was far from over. They wanted justice for their daughter, and they were determined to make sure her death was not in vain. Aubreigh Wyatt's death didn't just break her family's hearts, it shook an entire community and sparked a nationwide conversation about bullying. Her story became a rallying cry for parents, educators, and activists who had been fighting for years to address the growing crisis of bullying in schools. One of the most shocking revelations was how common Aubrey's experience was. According to studies, nearly 1 in 5 students report being bullied at school. Many of these children, like Aubreigh, suffer in silence, afraid to speak up or unsure of where to turn for help. Experts weighed in, explaining that bullying isn't just kids being kids. It's a serious issue that can have lifelong consequences, from depression and anxiety to, in the worst cases, suicide. They also pointed out that schools often lack the resources and training to handle bullying effectively, leaving students vulnerable and parents feeling helpless. Aubrey's story also highlighted the role of social media in modern bullying. Unlike traditional bullying, which might end when the school bell rings, online bullying follows kids everywhere. Hurtful comments, fake accounts, and public shaming can happen 24/7, making it nearly impossible for victims to escape. In the wake of Aubrey's death, many schools began to take action. Anti-bullying programs were expanded, and mental health resources were made more accessible. Some states even passed new laws requiring schools to report and address bullying more aggressively. But while these changes were a step in the right direction, many felt they weren't enough. Aubrey's parents continued to push for more, speaking at conferences, meeting with lawmakers, and sharing their daughter's story with anyone who would listen. Their message was clear: no child should have to endure what Aubreigh did. It's up to all of us, parents, teachers, and communities, to create a world where every child feels safe, valued, and supported. Aubreigh Wyatt's life may have been tragically short, but her legacy continues to inspire change. Her story has become a symbol of the fight against bullying, a reminder of the devastating consequences of cruelty and indifference. Through the Aubreigh Wyatt Foundation, her family has turned their pain into purpose. The foundation provides resources for children and families affected by bullying, from counseling services to educational workshops. It also works with schools to create safer, more inclusive environments where every child can thrive. But the fight is far from over. Bullying remains a pervasive problem, and too many children are still suffering in silence. That's why Aubrey's story is so important. It's a call to action for all of us. If you're a parent, talk to your kids about bullying. Teach them to be kind, to stand up for others, and to speak out when they see something wrong. If you're a student, don't be a bystander. Reach out to someone who's struggling and let them know they're not alone. And if you're an educator or policymaker, Take bullying seriously. Listen to students, invest in resources, and create a culture of empathy and respect. Aubreigh's family has one simple request. Don't let her death be in vain. Honor her memory by being the change she needed. Together, we can create a world where no child has to suffer like Aubreigh did. As we close this chapter of her story, let's remember Aubreigh not for how she died, but for how she lived. She was a bright, creative, and loving girl who deserved so much more. Let's make sure her light continues to shine, not just in our hearts, but in the actions we take to make the world a better place. If you or someone you know is struggling with bullying or mental health, please reach out for help. You are not alone. And if you'd like to support the fight against bullying, consider donating to the Aubreigh Wyatt Foundation or signing their petition for stronger anti-bullying laws. Thank you for listening to Aubreigh's story. If this video moved you, please give it a like, share it with others, and subscribe to our channel for more stories that matter. Together, we can make a difference.